Welcome to KRQE's New Mexico News Insiders, 2025 Regional Edward R. Murrow Award winner for Best Podcast. Here's Gabrielle Burkhart and Chris McKee. Sponsored by New Mexico PBS.
The village of Rio Ruidoso, a beloved mountain community here in New Mexico, has been through the ringer lately. Last summer, we covered devastating fires and flooding, and since then, the village has been in recovery mode.
Yeah, and within the span of a day, those recovery efforts were set back once again in a huge way. A major flash flood tore through parts of the village again. You may have seen video of water even carrying an entire home downstream with it.
Yeah, last summer, the South Fork and Salt fires, which originated on the Mescalero Apache Reservation, it burned through a combined 25,000 acres, impacting the Lincoln National Forest. And it's not the first time that wildfires have left burn scars and just a path of destruction in their wake. So here to talk to us about what the village has been dealing with is Ruidoso Fire Chief Cade Hall, joining us remotely from Ruidoso. Chief Hall, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I just want to get an idea from you. How long have you lived in Ruidoso?
I was born and raised here in Ruidoso.
That's what I thought. All right. So through your experience, do the last few years feel different than years past as far as, you growing up there with just extreme weather events that y'all have had lately?
Yeah, it really has. I don't know what the reasoning behind it is, but yeah, it's definitely been different.
How has it been different in a sense? Obviously it seems like it's been more extreme, but just to spell it out, how has it been different?
Yeah, so of course, Ruidoso's name is noisy water. That's what it stands for. But it's just it's chaotic. It's just the way that it comes now. It comes in, I don't know, massive amounts. It's not normal. It's I don't know. It's just extreme.
Yeah. Just incredible visuals that we, of course, saw, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about that. We certainly covered a lot of the elements of this flood for our newscast, and I think people got a glimpse of that destruction. We mentioned the house floating down the river. There were national news outlets that were on this story, broadcasting this, across the country. My parents live in Oregon, and that was one of the things that they asked me about over the phone. Like, you guys had some extreme weather over there, some flooding over there. What has it been like for you personally, though, as somebody who, as you mentioned, you grew up there? Has this been a hard time, an emotional time? What has this been like for you personally?
I guess it really hasn't all set in yet because we're still in the middle of it. Every day we have a chance of, getting more floods. But going, I guess, back to last year, maybe the year before that, it wasn't a common thing. Our last time that we flooded like this was 2008, and it wasn't even this severe. I was part of it with the department at that time as well, and that took days and days of rain for it to happen. Where this took, 3 inches in just a few hours. And it was right there, and here comes a wall of water. So it's hard to prepare for things like that, even though last year did get us prepared. So it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just something that it's a normal thing now, where it didn't used to be.
I know, just from watching this sort of unfold, this was coming out of the July 4th weekend in Texas, where they had just devastating, deadly flooding there. And we're all seeing videos of that come across, our newscasts and our screens and social media. And then here we go to July 8th. And then I see literally, I remember I saw a video on social media of that floodwater, and it said Ruidoso, New Mexico. And it had a house like just floating downstream, and people like, oh my gosh, is this real? This is in New Mexico. So let's go back to July 8th. There was a big storm that dropped a lot of rain on the mountains around Ruidoso, particularly on that burn scar. The water raced down through the village and the Rio Ruidoso. Estimates between 1.5 and 3.5 inches of rain fell on the burn scar in about an hour. That doesn't sound like a lot when you think about just inches, but that dry land, again, we mentioned a burn scar, it's not soaking up the water, right? It's just flushing across it. So where were you when you started hearing of this flooding on July 8th?
So I was already out in the field. So we had a council meeting that day, and I looked over toward the mountain, and I saw just some really, really dark clouds. So I pre-positioned all of our guys, And we went out into the field. We had radar from the National Weather Service telling us that there was pretty bad. It wasn't raining in town yet, but you could see it was just really hammering that South Fork bird scar. So I left a council meeting and I went up to the end of the Upper Canyon to see if in the river it rose or anything. And so when we were up there, I met another police officer, said that it had risen about 6 or 7 inches. And so I turned around and I left, and I got all the guys in in positions to start doing notices to everybody in town that the river was rising, and to get everybody out of the low lying areas. And came back to the EOC, and by the time I got back to the EOC, the wall of water had already hit to the reservation line in the Upper Canyon.
By no means. I mean, you mentioned this in just one of your previous answers here. This is not the first time that Ruidoso has gotten an extreme amount of water or even seen, some of the flash flooding. It's certainly, though, the worst that this has happened, especially since the wildfires occurred. We know Rio Ruidoso rose to a record-breaking 20 feet, 5 feet higher than the record the previous year before. How do you describe to people who weren't there just that volume of water? You had mentioned going up there right when things were getting started, checking in, seeing how much it had risen, but how much, went through this area compared to how much they usually get? What is that volume of water like?
Well, the average, the Rio Ruidoso, when it's in, midstream or so, you're talking about 3 to 4 feet of water. And so now you add 16 feet on top of that. Driving down the highway, you're looking at those overpasses are 13 feet. So just imagine another 7 foot, and that's a wall of water coming at you. So it's incomprehensible, really, until you've witnessed it, until you watch what that water can do. I mean, it can take a boulder the size of a mobile home, and just throw it like there's nothing to it, and it's whatever it's in its way, it just takes it out. So that's why we try to get everybody out of the way. But it's until you've actually seen the destruction, I can't really describe it to you. It's massive. It's chaotic.
Yeah. And again, this was an amount of water that really no one ever sees almost year round, especially before the fires along Rio Ruidoso, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
You mentioned that you guys had a council meeting. Was there a discussion previously? Like, was there any anticipation that it could get this bad on July 8th?
Yes, and that's why we had everybody pre-positioned. Ever since last year's fires and floods, we have to be cognizant on everything that goes on around here. So this is something that we've been, of course, pre-planning and planning and practicing and doing over and over. We had tabletop exercises over it where the entire village comes together and sets up our EOC. And we were definitely as prepared as we possibly could be for it. But whenever you see that kind of water, there's not a whole lot you can do but get people out of the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What kind of prep work happens? I mean, I remember, visiting during like flood preps, and I saw, the filling of sandbags and things like that from firefighters. But what sort of prep work were you all doing?
So there was a bunch of desilting, of course, a bunch of debris removal. There was HESCO baskets put in place. There was, full just mastication, everything that was done like prior to try to clean up so we didn't get the clogged bridges. And there was pre-planning, practicing, pre-staged cutoff spots. I mean, there was any way that you could think of doing rescues to, everything you can think of. That's what we were doing to make sure that we were prepared to trying to get people out of the way, trying to get business owners to not repopulate areas in the river, trying to, get Ruidoso people to get the word out on radio stations, social media, you name it, to make sure everybody was advised of what happens whenever the rain clouds start hitting the mountain. And that's the biggest thing, I guess, that's hard, is whenever you're in Ruidoso, it can not be raining. It's not raining a drop, but you just look toward that mountain, and if it's raining up there, within 30, 45 minutes, you're going to get a lot of water coming through the town. And it catches you off guard.
We'll be right back with more of the New Mexico News Insiders.
Hi, I'm Logan Rader, host of New Mexico Living. New Mexico News Insiders is sponsored by New Mexico PBS.
If you like New Mexico News Insiders, learn more about New Mexico in focus
a weekly hour-long show analyzing decisions impacting New Mexico statewide. Stream it anytime, anywhere. Visit nmpbs.org and follow them on all social media platforms. Now back to New Mexico News Insiders.
One of the places that was hit hardest by the flooding was the Riverview RV Park. 3 people were killed in the floodwaters there. 64-year-old Benjamin Timothy Fegan, along with 2 children, a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, who were visiting the area from El Paso. We've seen video of crews trying to save them and search for the kids in the floodwaters. Just heartbreaking. Can you talk to us about the emergency alerts that were sent out? We heard from the mayor originally that week that the sirens didn't go off on the village because those were reserved for full village evacuations, as we understand it, and this was not a full village evacuation, correct? What did the village do as far as alerting people to flash flooding?
So we have the iPOS system, and we have the Tell Me Ruidoso or Contact Me Ruidoso. There's several different that our emergency manager would. He's a lot better on how many. There's several. There's a redundant system on how many alerts we have, but they hit every single one of them. The sirens, we have an old siren system that's just like the mayor said. It's just for evacuation of the entire town. So that wouldn't have been a very good thing for us to hit because that would have put people right in harm's way. We have a new system we've been trying to get in place for the last year ever since the South Fork fire burned the village so bad. But it's just not completed yet.
So do you know if people in that RV park got like alerts on their phones or what sort of warnings did they get?
You were mentioning as well door knocking, right? That was happening.
Of course. Yes, sir. The door knocking is the primary, not the primary, but we know that we did that as well. So there was door knocking, there was the alerts on everybody's phones, and then there was radio alerts on the FM and AM stations.
Do you know specifically about the RV park, though? People that were in that specific area, what kind of warnings they received?
I know they got the cell phone, and then they got the microphones from the police officers and public works driving by, telling everybody to get higher land. Right there at that RV park is called Two Rivers. So that's why it got hit so hard. There's 2 rivers coming into that one location. So it was the Rio Ruidoso and the Carrizo Creek.
I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the damage that we saw left over, and you can even see it, as Gabby mentioned. We've seen some of the video that was taken from police body cameras just as the floodwaters had really ripped through the area. The damage happened all the way, though, down Rio Ruidoso. We know it wasn't just isolated to the RV park, right? You mentioned there are several bridges and trying to keep those through the city from clogging up, right? And I know there was bridge inspections that had to happen after this event. Even further down, there's the Ruidoso Downs racetrack and casino. Seeing the destruction yourself, though, how do you describe it? Can you tell us what you've seen, what it looks like? Just what are some of the images that stick out in your head?
I guess some of the images I would say that stick out the most would be you have a full car inside of a house. You have a dumpster that's 20 foot up in the air wrapped around a tree. You have full stick-built houses that had just they were there and then they're not there, and there's no trace of them. There's nothing left. They're in remnants. Mobile homes that were placed on the foundation is now 200 feet and on somebody else's property. It's just it's catastrophic.
Is it still there? What's the progress been like since this happened?
This is one of the most resilient communities that I mean, it hit and immediately it got to work. It's like ants. I mean, just people just bam, bam, bam going on and just cleaning and helping and picking each other up and trying to, and there's a lot of people that are still, they're hurt and they're mad or they're sad. You have every single emotion go through you whenever you go through something like this. And this community came together, and it didn't matter what emotion you were feeling. They were putting people's, hugging each other, or listening to each other and just helping each other, working for one another. There was a group of high school kids walking up and down Gavilan Canyon where we got hit really, really hard, that had pre-made breakfast burritos, just going out there handing it to people that were working. And it's a resilient community that gets hit one day and and it hit again and just keeps getting back up.
Since the flash flooding, you joked that you only have to leave this interview when you get more rain, and you all have had more rain, and there's extensive cleanup that needs to happen, right? Are people on edge when they see rain in the forecast right now? How has that impacted cleanup efforts?
It's really hindered it. So we basically have those alerts like we, I've always had, and we make sure all of our contractors are listening and have their phones on, so there's absolutely no way that they can miss an alert. Um, so basically, if we get a flash flood advisory, they get out of the river and all working stops, and they have to wait until that advisory is cleared before they can get back to work.
Wow. Do you get a sense, though, that people in the community are on edge when they see rain in the forecast?
Yes, they really are, and it's hard to describe it. How it's PTSD. They got hit last year, and then it's all happening again this year.
Ruidoso has a lot of locals like you, obviously, but there's also a lot of vacation homes. Long term, are you hearing that people want to rebuild in these areas, even with the risk of flooding and wildfires so great? What's the sentiment that you're hearing from locals?
I get a mixed message. I have a whole bunch of people that I hear, they just love this town. This is where they want to be, and this is where they're going to make sure that they rebuild and come back. And then I hear people say that, it's just too much and they have to go.
It really seems like it is something that has these events over the last few years has affected really the psyche of the town. For locals like you, how does it make you feel about Ruidoso?
You hope it doesn't go away, and you hope that people keep loving it the way that you do. But I don't know. There's that uncertainty. There's our high school football team we're the Warriors. And so that's just what they call everybody's. If you're from Ruidoso, you're a warrior, and you just keep on fighting.
Obviously, the river is a natural area, and I think you touched a little bit about this, but I wanted to ask a question to it. The village has built or developed really right up to the edge of that river, because for years it's just sort of been a noisy but sort of more sleepy river, I guess you could say. Not a whole lot of activity happens out of there, right? It's not like the Rio Grande or anything, but the village, much of the village was not in a direct flood zone, but there is a lot of work to do now to address what happened here, especially when we consider that this flooding will probably continue, I think, for years to come, is the expectation that many have put out there. What do you feel is the long-term impact on Ruidoso for something like this, in terms of whether that's infrastructure rebuilding, and then also just sort of, again, a psyche question? What is the long-term impact?
I think it's going to be better. Basically, we got hit by that 100-year flood. The 100-year flood, and yes, it was only 3.5 inches, but it was where it hit. It hit perfectly right there on that South Fork scar. So if it wouldn't have hit there, we wouldn't have got this kind of this damage. But since it did exactly what they told us it was going to do. And that's why basically that floodplain expanded. There was houses that were back in the 40s that were affected, but very few. Majority of the houses that were affected were houses that were current, not new, but I guess you could say just not, the floodplain wasn't there. Like you were saying, the river was narrower at that time, but the floodplain you couldn't imagine what it was going to be because there wasn't a scar. How do you pre-plan for a perfectly built fire scar? So I think Ruidoso is going to come through, and it's going to do what it's always done, and it's going to prevail.
We'll be right back with more on New Mexico News Insiders.
Hi, I'm Monica Wicki, host of New Mexico Living. This episode of New Mexico News Insiders is sponsored by New Mexico PBS. If you enjoy New Mexico News Insiders, check out New Mexico in Focus, a great source for insights about what's happening in our state. Catch their podcast and videos at nmpbs.org or stream it anytime, anywhere on the free PBS app. Now, let's continue to New Mexico News Insiders.
I'm hearing too that, in places like this, obviously you deal with insurance, and you already got, people having to deal with flood insurance and fire insurance and these natural disasters. But we all know housing can get very expensive. Do you see this being an issue there for this village community that, relies a lot on hospitality and tourism and things like that? Is
I
that
guess
being
whenever it comes
discussed?
basically to that insurance, I don't know that I would. It's already hit a max on what with the fires. So I can't see it getting any worse than it already is. Um, our fire department's an ISO 2, so that helps quite a bit. Um, but basically, I think it's just a rebuilding, and it's not going to get any worse. It's as bad as it can get. Now we're going to start going up.
Okay. And then just from your career field, we know, firefighters don't just fight fires. You all do water rescues and things like that. As much pre-planning and preparedness, it sounds like you all were doing ahead of the July 8th floods. We still had 3 deaths. Again, we're just watching the video of the rescuers who are trying to find those children. Have you had a chance to talk to those rescuers? And can you talk to us a little bit about how that went and what kind of efforts they made that day?
That was we did get to sit down and talk. Firefighters aren't what you consider a real touchy-feely talking kind of about their emotions, but they have them, and we're here to prevent that, and we weren't able to successfully do what we're here and what we set forth to do. That trailer park itself, I can't recall because there were so many from the beginning of the flood to the end of the flood on rescues. There was over 60 rescues that we had made that day. In that trailer park alone, there was another set of kids that were inside of a home that we had to swim into and get out of that exact same area. The men of the Ruidoso Fire Department are very, very special guys. They're probably the highest trained people, one of the highest trained people in New Mexico in all hazards. So I'd say that they took it hard, but they kept on, and they're going to keep on, and they're going to make sure that they can do everything they possibly can to prevent that from happening.
What has the response been like from the village? You mentioned these are some of the most resilient folks that you've been around. I've seen it in years past, certainly, but are you guys getting help from, outside of the community as well? What's the recovery response been like?
Yeah, it's been wonderful. The state itself has come in. They didn't hold anything up. They sent every resource they possibly could right when they heard about everything coming in. So we had resources from the state. We had all the adjoining county resources, immediately. So Lincoln County Fire Officers, their all their volunteer departments came and helped us immediately. Um, we had Las Cruces coming up immediately. We had people from Alamogordo. You name it, New Mexico came, and like they always will. You guys being where you guys are from, you know exactly how wonderful New Mexico is. And there was not, do you need our help? There was, we're here to help. And we couldn't have been more blessed.
You mentioned earlier in our conversation the preparedness that went into, getting ready for an event like this. But obviously, as you mentioned, this is like what we're considering sort of a 100-year flood right now. Perfect conditions dropped right in the right area to send all of that, 20 feet of water essentially down the river. Is there anything you've learned from this experience and anything that the fire department is going to do differently now or do more of to prepare for perhaps the chance of this happening again?
I put in to get another fire station, some different apparatus that we can drive into to make things faster so we can drive into those flood waters and not get swept away. We've positioned a new station in the middle of town at one of the highest points that nobody gets cut off and everybody has an opportunity to have firemen there at all times. The response is so broad, and our department is not, we are only 27 strong. We have 3 Swiftwater teams, but we're going to get the entire department where all 27 of the firemen will be Swiftwater technicians. So right now they're all trained in Swiftwater just because of what we have to deal with, but they're not all technicians. So
you mentioned apparatus. What would help apparatus wise? What kind of vehicles are you looking to sort of deploy that would have helped?
basically those big army vehicles that are they're 6-ton vehicles, 7-ton vehicles that go through, and they have high water clearance. They have ladders wrapped around them, and you can drive right in the middle of one of the big water, and you can climb up on them. Like we have boats, and we have one that our public works is a deuce and a half that we use. That we did use actually very here, but we just need more. And a little different, built different, just for swiftwater rescues.
We saw that the village was deterring visitors in the immediate aftermath of this flooding. We know, again, it's a mountain town whose economy depends on tourism, though. How is the village right now squaring that? Do you feel, that this recovery effort is different than previous? Are you guys welcoming tourists again, or still, trying to take care of your own?
Now we're welcoming tourists now because our public works have been working so hard to get the amenities back, to get the water and the sewer and everything back up and running. That was one of the biggest things that the mayor was, there was so much catastrophic. Our sewer system was down, our water system was down. There really wasn't anything we could offer anybody at the time. It was just devastating. So, but as fast as our people worked, like I was saying, our public work director, Adam Sanchez, is one of the best out there, and he just got things going, and all the men got to work and women, and they really got that system. It's not completed, but it's operational now to where we can accept tourists back.
Is there anything else that you would like to add about what's happened here? Again, I mentioned this was a national story. A lot of times what happens with national news is people see the worst of it and they don't necessarily see anything else than that. What would you add to people? You're in there day in, day out, having interactions with people, experiences, seeing the community change as time goes on now. Anything else that you would add about this experience, what you would want people to know?
If people would just be, I would love it if if everybody could have experienced the sense of the humanity, the love that was brought to this, the way, the northern part of New Mexico and southern part of New Mexico. We're not Norteños, we're not Southerners, we're one, we're all the same. And basically there's just love, and everybody brought that in time of need, and that's what's going to help us build back to where we need to be.
Is there any specific person or event that sticks out in your mind over the course of the last couple weeks that you've been living through that you can share with us?
There's so many, like I was talking about, those kids that were just going on with their breakfast burrito. When the governor came and our mayor, and they hugged each other, that was something that was pretty special. They're kind of, opposite spectrums of the, and when a Republican and a Democrat can hug each other and just know that they're there for each other. And, our mayor, he's second to none. He cares and he tries and he fights and he loves his people and he loves his town. And so does our governor. And, they worked really well together to try to get us what we needed to get out of this hole and to help each other.
Yeah. You talk about this being like a unifying sort of event. It sounds like you can't help but notice the divisiveness that you often feel lately, especially in politics and communities when they disagree with things. But you're painting a picture of real unity here in Ruidoso lately.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was and what it is.
Well, Chief Cade Hall, we appreciate you joining us here on the podcast, and appreciate your time, and good luck with all the efforts continuing forward. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And you guys be safe out there.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Again, a thanks to Chief Cade Hall of the Ruidoso Fire Department for letting us know all of what happened and what is still happening. Just a lot of stories to tell out in that community, and it's good to hear at least a thread of, as he said, the recovery efforts and everybody coming together to help each other out.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned, obviously, tragically 3 people died, but he said there was like 60 plus rescues as well.
Yeah.
A lot of wild and crazy flooding that those rescuers were going into to save folks. And yeah, the chief mentioned to us a guy was like 20 foot up in a tree, and they had to just like leave him there while they went and rescued other folks before getting to him.
Yeah,
Just
that's what he was telling us.
Unimaginable. Yeah.
The incredible volume of calls that they had coming in and triaging where they needed to get to first was a lot of the work that he was doing hands-on that day that it happened. And as he mentioned, 27 strong, they've only got so many people trained in how to help everybody in really what was one of the worst things that community has ever seen. So pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, well, we will stay on top of the recovery efforts in Ruidoso and in New Mexico. If you all have story ideas or people you'd like to hear from on our show, always feel free and reach out. I'm Gabrielle.Burkhart@krqe.com via email, and gburknm on social media.
I'm at Chris McKee TV, also chris.mckee@krqe.com. Thanks for watching and listening.